Hello, my name is Brian Tadros. I'm an attorney at Law Office of Brian D. Tadros. All I handle are workers' compensation claims for people that have been injured in the state of Florida. One of the most common things I hear from clients is, should I settle my case and what would a settlement look like? And that's different in every individual case. As I tell my clients, I can't create the facts. The facts are what they are. But what I can do is guide you through that process by making sure that you can make an informed decision about what would be in your best interest. And you can't do that unless you have somebody involved in your case that can explain to you, based on their experience, what workers' comp does cover and what it doesn't cover. And so we've talked about some of this in some of our prior videos, but really what we're talking about is exposure. Exposure in workers' comp really means, what is the insurance company going to have to pay for? So before you even consider whether you should settle your case or not, you should have an attorney involved in your case who can sit there and provide you with an analysis of what the insurance company is likely going to have to pay if your case stays open, because that's how they're going to base the value that your case has from a settlement perspective. I also get asked a lot of times whether or not my case is going to settle. Do all cases settle? And more often than not, cases do settle. And the reason for that really is something I can sum up in a short, brief saying that I think is kind of witty and fun. Best file is a closed file for the insurance company. And the easiest way for them to close the file is to settle it, because it guarantees an outcome. They know they can pay one final amount via check, and they'll never have to spend another dime on your case. So most cases do settle. The question is, what should it settle for? What is reasonable? So as I mentioned, your lawyer should be involved in the case, providing you with this analysis of what your case is going to cost the insurance company if it stays open. Hopefully they're going to explain to you those individual things. What is it going to cost for medical benefits? What is it going to cost for lost wage benefits? What we call in the industry indemnity benefits. In the end, they're going to provide you with hopefully a recommendation of what you should demand and what you can expect from the settlement. You really need that information before you decide if settlement's right for you or not. Because in your head, you may be thinking that your case is worth something and find out that it's not worth that. Because as normal human beings, we might think that you're entitled to certain things, but the law might not allow for it. And that's an important thing for people to understand. No amount of arguing by any lawyer, no amount of sympathy from a judge is going to get you something that the law does not allow for. And so, case in point, there is no mechanism in the law for what we call pain and suffering or loss of enjoyment of life. So when we're evaluating what your case is worth, it's really a dollars and cents analysis of what you're going to cost the insurance company for the benefits that the law requires that they provide you. When someone's trying to make a decision about whether they should settle their case or not, the answer to that question firmly lies with that individual client. I am never going to tell a client whether they should settle a case or not settle a case. The situation, though, is that they need to consider the risks either way. There's a risk if you don't settle the case, and there's a risk if you do settle the case. So if you settle your case, you're going to get a lump sum amount of money that is going to pay you for future lost wages, future medical benefits that the insurance company would have had to provide otherwise. But they're paying it at a discount. That's why the case is settling. Because if the case stays open, the risk is you could have a new car accident the next day. You could slip and fall out of Publix or Winn-Dixie. And at that point, if you've made your condition worse, they're no longer responsible for those injuries. God forbid, in the year and a half that we've been going through with COVID, if you had COVID and you passed away, that's not something that the insurance company is going to have to pay any benefits because of, and your workers' comp benefits will die with you, sadly. So once a client has weighed the pros and cons of settlement and has decided that they'd like to settle their case, what normally is going to happen is the lawyer representing you would make a demand to the insurance company for a certain amount of money that they are willing to settle the case for. At that point, the insurance company, if they're interested in settling, is going to provide an offer, and you're going to go back and forth. And it's kind of like buying a car at that point. It's negotiations. And if the parties can agree on an amount to settle the case for and all the other terms, then the case will settle. If the parties can't come to an agreement, the case doesn't settle. And that's an important thing to understand. And I think we've talked about this in a prior video, but settlement in workers' comp is completely voluntary. So if you want to settle the case and the insurance company is not interested, the case can't settle. And the same is true vice versa. The judge has no power to award a settlement like he would perhaps in personal injury or some other type of legal arena. So if you can't work it out directly with the insurance company or through their attorney to agree on a term to settle the case for, the case just doesn't settle. You still keep the case open, you can still get benefits, but if you're in a situation where benefits are being denied to you, you face the fact that you may have to go to court and fight to get a judge to award you benefits. And that's an all or nothing kind of proposition. And sometimes people aren't willing to risk that. But again, that decision lies with the client. As long as they're making an informed decision about the direction of the case, I've done my job. I can look myself in the mirror and let them know that they were explained the risks of going forward and the risks of settling the case. And that's what's most important to me, is to make sure that my clients make informed decisions and that they feel like they've been guided through this process and they haven't been going through it alone. So I've had clients in the past who were interested in talking settlement, were not offered what I thought was a fair amount for settlement, but for whatever personal reasons they had, what they were on, difficult times financially, they decided that they wanted to settle the case and have actually said to me, Brian, I understand that this isn't necessarily fair, but I want to go ahead and accept the money. I need this. It's what's best for me. And I'm never going to stand in the way of a client making that informed decision. My only concern is that they make that decision based on my expertise, having done this for 16 years, so that they can feel comfortable in the decision that they made. If you're able to reach a global settlement of your case, this can benefit all the parties involved. If you're the injured worker, you have the guarantee of a certain amount of money that you're going to be receiving from the settlement, and your case is closed. And for a lot of people, having an open workers' comp case is not pleasant. If you're going through this yourself, I'm sure that you would agree. You've got concerns about, is somebody watching you on surveillance, having to go to doctor's appointments with doctors that you don't want to see. But if you settle your case, you're able to take that lump sum amount of money, move on with your life, and hopefully move into a better place financially. But also, if you need medical treatment, you can pick the doctors that you want to see. You have to pay for it on your own. That's the counterpoint to that. But at least you have control over that. You're not beholden to the insurance company anymore to tell you where to go for medical treatment, when you have to go, and you have that control over it. And for the insurance company, as we talked about before, they have the guarantee that they're going to write one check and they're done with this case forever. They can wipe it off the books. And that's really important for them, because insurance companies, they have tons and tons of money in the bank, but they allocate money for each case that they're handling for what we call reserves. And your case has a certain amount of money tied up in reserves. And once it's settled, that settlement frees up that money that can be reallocated. So it helps them to operate their business. It's a win-win for everybody, as long as you can come to an agreement that is going to be something you're willing to accept. More often than not, you're not going to get what you necessarily feel you're entitled to, but that's coming from a place of emotion, because this is very personal to you. You're going through something that has been, very traumatic. It has turned your life upside down, made things difficult for you and your family, and it's natural for you as a human being to want to get paid something for that aggravation, that pain and suffering. But as I mentioned before, there's nothing in the law that's going to compensate you for that. So that's one of the most important things for people to understand when they're dealing with a Florida workers' compensation case from the get-go. As I explained to my clients in their initial consult, you have to understand the playing field that you're on. You have to understand the rules of the game. If you don't, you're not going to be able to navigate the system properly. And so hopefully that's what we provide our clients is, with our expertise, we guide them through this process so they don't feel like they're going at it alone. Likewise, settlement is beneficial for the employer who has the insurance policy that's paying your claim, because they will be able to typically get you to sign what's called a general release and resignation. This is an agreement that is typically required to settle most cases, and if the injured worker isn't willing to do it, the case simply cannot settle. And basically that agreement, in a nutshell, is your agreement to never work for the company again, to never sue them for anything that happened to you while you're an employee, but the employer is very motivated to try and get you out the door once you've been injured on the job. They may view you as damaged goods, but you're not. And if you're able to maximize your case and get a fair settlement, hopefully, again, you can move forward with your life and put this in the past. Oftentimes I get asked whether or not I can return to work, whether it be for the employer that the injured worker got injured at or at a subsequent job, and whether or not that will impact their ability to settle the claim. Generally speaking, the answer to that is no, it does not impact your ability to settle the claim. However, it can affect the value of your case, because if you remember from what we've mentioned in this video as well as prior videos, the value of your case is based on what we call exposure. Exposure is what you're going to cost the insurance company if your case stays open in benefits they would have to pay to you under the workers' compensation law. And if you're able to go back and work, if you're earning so much money at your post-accident employer that the insurance company doesn't have to pay you, that reduces the value of your case. But what I tell clients in that position is you should absolutely return to work if you're able to. First of all, if the employer that hired you and that's where you got hurt offers you a job within your light duty work restrictions, you're required to go do it. But more importantly, it's important for you to be able to get back to some sense of normal life. So as long as you're able to safely work within the restrictions that your doctor gives you, whether it be for your employer that you were working for at the time of your accident or another employer, if it's what's right for you to be able to guarantee income so that you can take care of you and your loved ones, you absolutely should do that. Does it reduce the value of your case? Possibly, but we'll walk through that together. I'll explain to you what your case is worth and why. And again, in the end, as long as you can make an informed decision about whether you should settle your case or not, then I think I've done my job. The $1 million question is always, what is my case worth? Sometimes we get that question during our initial consult, and that's practically impossible to answer during that consult. I'm not a lawyer that's going to make a promise to somebody that their case is worth this or that I can get a specific benefit for them. Certainly not during an initial consult where I haven't reviewed any medical records or anything from the insurance company about how much they've paid on your case. Every case is worth a specified range based on what the facts of that case are. Do you require surgery? If you have to have an expensive back surgery, your case has significantly more value than somebody who just needs physical therapy. Not only is the cost of that medical procedure in and of itself going to raise the value of your case, but it's going to result in you needing time off of work to recover from that. Somebody who needs physical therapy may only need 4 to 6 weeks of physical therapy, and then they're back at work. And then they're released at what we call maximum medical improvement. And the cost of therapy is nothing compared to the cost of surgery. So it's one of the more difficult questions to answer that we get. And I don't think it's appropriate to really address it until you have all of the facts of the case. We don't want to push settlement on somebody. Certainly if a client wants to settle their case sooner than later, again, they are the ones in the driver's seat about whether they should settle their case and if they want to accept what is offered or not. If they want to pursue it sooner than later, I will explain to them why it's difficult to value their case at that point in time, because perhaps we don't have all of the facts available to us. But if that's what the client wants, that's their decision and they have the right to make that. So again, my role is to make sure that they understand what their case is worth based on what I know now, and that we don't have all of the facts. And it's possible that if the case stayed open 2 months, 6 months down the road, the case might be worth more because there might be different recommendations from the doctors, but I can only value it based on the information that's currently available to us. So that's without a doubt one of the most difficult questions we get. What is my case worth? What's important is that you have somebody who has the experience of valuing cases. And I've done that for insurance companies. I've done that for individuals. All I've done is workers' comp for about 16 years. So if it's a Florida workers' comp case, I could definitely value it for you, present you with the information that you need so that you can make an informed decision about whether settlement is right for you or not. So while I can't necessarily tell you what an individual case is worth from the outset of a case because we don't have all of the facts available that we need to properly value the case, what I can tell you is typically the insurance company is going to pay about 40 to 60% of what they think the exposure on your case is to them. And so that means what are you going to cost them in future benefits for medical and lost wage benefits, what we call indemnity and workers' comp. And the reality is that's not rocket science. That's what we eat, sleep, and breathe in workers' comp. Every single case involves those benefits. Those are the only two classifications of benefits that you can get in workers' comp, medical and indemnity. So we sit down with a piece of paper and we go through your medical records and we look at what is being forecasted in those medical records. Are doctors recommending surgery for you? If so, how much is that anticipated to cost the insurance company? How long are you going to be out of work after that while you're recovering initially? How long will you then be on light duty while you continue to recover from those injuries? Are there additional procedures that you may need because of that procedure, or that you need independent of that, but they have to be done at a different time because you need to recover from one before you can have the next? So we'll sit down, we'll walk through all of that. And as long as the exposure that we come up with is fair, meaning we're not just assuming that you're going to have a situation where you had surgery and there's an infection that develops, that's certainly a possibility. But the insurance company is not going to consider that when they're looking at their exposure. They're not looking at what's possible, they're looking at what's probable. What are you most likely going to cost them? And so if we sit down and we do that fairly and objectively, then we should be able to tell you what your case is worth, what range it's worth. And as long as we've done it fairly, it should be pretty easy to convince the insurance company that that range is a fair number. And in the end, as long as both parties are being fair, you should be able to settle your case. And again, the majority of cases settle as long as the parties are willing to explore settlement. If they're not, then it's kind of impossible. You can't get past go, so to speak. But if the parties are willing to have a conversation and they're willing to look at things fairly and objectively, it's not rocket science. It's important to me that clients become friends. I want them to feel like they had somebody in their corner. I want them to feel as though somebody explained the process to them and guided them through that process. There's nothing worse than having a client who says, they had a past experience with a lawyer and they thought all lawyers were jerks because they could never get that lawyer on the phone. They were always only dealing with paralegals. That is not how I run my practice. I want people to have access to me within reason. Of course, I have multiple clients and I'm in events and things like that, and I can't always be available, but they certainly have access to me. They have access to my paralegal. If they can't get the answers that they need from the paralegal, or if they just need to talk to me, they have direct access to me, and we will work out any kind of problem involving the case together, because in the end, I want to be able to shake their hand and I want them to, say hi to me when they see me at the grocery store. I feel very blessed that I have the education and the background that I have to be able to help people through these difficult times in their lives. And that in the end, that's what it's about, is for me to be able to do that for those people, be able to do good by them, good by me. I am running a business, of course, but I want them to make informed decisions. And in the end, as long as I can look myself in the mirror and say I guided them through that to the best of my ability, they were able to make an informed decision. Hopefully they've got some closure from resolving their case if it settles. Again, most do. And they're able to move on with their life, then that's a win-win for me. If you or somebody has been injured on the job in the state of Florida and they need guidance and they want somebody to walk through that process with them, help them get the best settlement that they can get, they're better off with an attorney than doing that on their own. They're not going to know how to value the case. Please reach out. Give us a call. You can reach us at the number that's listed below. You can also check us out on our blog, on our website, bdtlawfirm.com. And if you found this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel.